Hi, I'm Arshi, and in this video, I'll be sharing my process of creating an infographic in Info362. First, I decided to select climate change as a topic for my infographic, as I'm extremely passionate about it, and I also believe that more people need to know about climate change. Thus, I wanted to make an infographic that could explain the causes, consequences, and impacts of climate change to people in a simple and easy to understand way. With this goal in mind, I started making my own infographic. One of the most important parts of creating an infographic is visual potential. Visual potential is the ability of information to be presented through a visual medium. Thus, visual potential essentially gives us the ability to create infographics. There are 5 aspects of visual potential that I'm going to discuss: appearance, numbers, relationship, location, and time. An appearance display essentially prepares and primes the viewers for the following information presented. For example, if I saw pictures of food at the beginning of an article, then my mind would be prepared to read about food in the following paragraphs of the article. In my infographic, I made multiple appearance displays. So for the example, the first display is showing the viewers that luscious trees are being cut down. This is preparing the viewers for the following information about deforestation. In the second display, the viewers are able to see an image of crops and note that food production has reduced by 31% due to climate change. This display is able to relay to the viewers that climate change is causing major consequences to not just the environment, but also to humans. The third display is of a factory that is emitting carbon dioxide. The display itself indicates to the viewers that factories play a part in causing climate change and prepares them to read about how they do so and to what extent. A numbers display uses multiple encoding strategies such as colors, size, and amount and position to present numeric information in a visual way. My numbers display informs the viewers about the drastic consequences of climate change on the environment and humans. It uses position to show the largest impacts, so the higher the image, the larger the impact. It also uses size, so the larger the circle, the larger the impact. The viewers are also able to clearly see the exact percentage of change on the impact through the text on the circles. Initially, I'd made a graph that showed the increase in carbon emissions over the years, but later I realized that I wanted the viewers to understand and really comprehend the urgency of climate change, and thus I chose to remove the display and instead put this one, as it better shows the drastic consequences of climate change and really through reliable numeric data and really emphasize how big of an issue it is. I think this creates a larger impact than a graph would. A relationship display helps showcase the relationship between 2 or more entities. It graphically shows the groupings, connections, or links between different concepts and topics. It can do this by using color, lines, size, or position. My relationship display shows the relationship between actions that humans can take, which can all culminate to a better environment and the slowing down of climate change. After further analysis of this display, I think that there are many improvements that I could make that would make it more clear in showing the relationships. I used an arrow and a straight line to establish relationships, but I think I could also have used dotted lines to show direct and indirect relationships. I also assume that it shows a hierarchy from the most impactful actions to the least, but I think that's not as clear now that I think about it. So I think in future iterations, this would be the one display that I really would want to improve on. A location display can show the differences in position on a page to represent the differences in position in the real world. Thus, it generally shows the position of something in relationship to another. For example, a map or a diagram of something would be a good example of a location display. My location display is a map of the United States that shows where temperatures have increased the most due to climate change. The display is not only able to show the locations of these areas, but is also able to highlight the amount of change through the opacity of the shaded circle. My visual model didn't have a location display, so I made this based on other clues from the other animations. A time display's visual potential is representing differences in time by showing differences in location on a page. It can also show relationships between event space and time. My time display is a timeline highlighting the progression of the actions different nations have decided to take to slow climate change. Keeping my target audience in mind, I wanted to show them that actions are being taken on a larger scale to slow climate change. Another aspect of infographics is encoding. Encoding refers to translating the information into a visual format through color, position, line treatment, and size. Thus, it really refers to attributing information with a specific format in order to make it more easily visualizable. For example, in this display, I have made the cut down trees orange and matched it to the following data to show that relationship. I've also associated orange with every negative aspect of climate change throughout the infographic. And then in the second display, I've used position and size to show encoding. The position to suggest a hierarchy in level of consequences, and size to show difference in impact. In addition to these, I think I could have encoded different line treatments in my relationship display as discussed earlier. Color is another important aspect of an infographic. It can set the right tone, mood, and also impact the viewer's emotions. It can also trigger associations and encode. My color model primarily uses the following 5 colors and a little bit of white in some parts. I chose I chose the color model because it has bright orange and yellow, which represent heat, and that's closely associated to climate change. Additionally, the bright colors, especially the orange, portray a sense of urgency that I want the viewers to feel when they look at the infographic. Okay, so I implemented the same background color as the model display, despite the visual model changing colors in each section. When I had initially implemented that with the light peach and gray, the entire infographic lacked color and looked very unengaging, so it wasn't really able to pull in the viewer's attention. Thus, I deliberately chose to use only one color as the background. Additionally, I used the color orange to trigger associations, as all the negative aspects of climate change are in orange instead of yellow or brown throughout the infographic. I made sure that the text was in the same shades as the model. One deliberate change I did make was deciding to use white on top of the number displays. I tried all the other colors, but the only color that allowed the viewers to easily read the information was white. Otherwise, white's used for section headers in the color model. I think the color model has analogous colors in terms of the orange and yellow, but also has some muted neutrals. Typography is an integral part of an infographic. It defines the font and the weight of the words. The way that words are written plays a big part in how they're perceived. For this infographic, the visual model is also the typography model. So after a lot of research, I narrowed down the font to Myriad Pro. It's a sans serif font with a very clean look similar to the model. But at the end, However, I do realize that it's not perfect, but I think it's close enough. In terms of labels, I used precision labels on the location display, as you can see, and then on the time display and also the numbers display. I tried to format them similar to how they were formatted in the visual language model. I didn't use identity labels as I didn't think that they were required anywhere at the time that I was making the infographic, but now after all of this analysis, I think having the identity labels on the relationship display could have helped clarify some of the reasoning behind the pictures in there. This would be something that I'd want to change in future iterations. The visual language is arguably the most influential part of the infographic. The visual language model determined the visual language and style. Specifically, the model used very flat and simplistic iconography, primarily utilizing solid colors and negative space. I tried to make similar icons focusing on highlighting the negative space and using solid shapes with very few details. I also used their style of circular photographs with color overlay for my numbers and relationship display. The overlay made the images lose their depth and seem flat, which matches the model's overall style. I also emulated the style of the bold section title followed by a subtitle followed by the main visual display, their overall structure in most sections. The section dividers, which are dotted lines, are also the same as the model. In general, I tried my best to emulate the visual model in all aspects to my best ability. For example, I didn't have a clear location display in the visual language model, but for my infographic, I tried to note the things that they did with the graph in the lower left-hand section, like the background lines and the very solid area under the graph. Visual hierarchy refers to how viewers' attention is guided throughout the infographic. Thus, it allows you to control how the information is absorbed by the viewers. You can use colors, size, and text weight to apply visual hierarchy. I wanted the viewer's attention to go from top to bottom in terms of the 4 large sections, but from left to right inside each of the 4 sections. So I first made the title and the subtitle large to direct the attention of the readers first to the top, and then relied on the natural, intuitive progression from top to bottom and then left to right, the intuitive way we all read. Inside each section, I incorporated the large title to give a preview of the topic, explain more context in the subtitle, and then finally displayed the visual, the graphic. And I repeated this for easy reading of the viewers. Unity helps ensure that all elements feel cohesive, that nothing stands out in a weird way. This can be achieved through strategic use of shapes, colors, fonts, and layout. So variety refers to deliberate changes that still adhere to ensure unity. And in addition to unity, variety is required to keep the infographic engaging. In terms of unity, I used the same structure throughout the infographic wherever I could of the title, subtitle, and then image. I made sure that most of the images were in circular shapes, used a very less detailed and flat iconography throughout the model. And for variety, according to the visual model, I should have had all the overlays as gray or a very light peach, but I changed that to a brighter orange to give that pop of color that would engage the users. So layout is an integral part as it visually really frames the infographic. It involves size, position, and arrangement, but it also involves page orientation, the nested sections, and symmetry. For my layout model, there are 4 main horizontal sections, 3 of which are divided into subsections. When it came to really following the layout model while ensuring that the visual model is also followed, I faced a lot of issues. For example, one of the issues I faced was with the header. The visual language model has a really bolded and large title, whereas the layout model has a small section for the title. So it was hard to incorporate these. At the end, I decided to compromise and made the header a little bit larger, but not too large that it would take away from the rest of the infographic. And this at the end looked good, or much better than what it did initially with the huge title according to the visual language model. And then I also chose to avoid the annotation section that the visual language model has throughout all of its sections. Reason being, if I did that, 1, it would break the layout model, and then 2, it would also take away some of the information that I wanted, because I only have a limited amount of small sections according to the layout model, and I wanted to put in as much diverse and large information as I could rather than go into detail in terms of this infographic, keeping the audience in mind. And I also chose to switch the 2nd and 3rd section in terms of the subsections. Reason being, I wanted to present a timeline, but I wanted to explain what climate change was, its consequences, and reasons before I went into what was being done to slow it. Alignment refers to the arrangement of elements so that they line up. It gives your infographic a polished and coherent look and feel. In terms of my infographic, everything is left aligned, which follows the visual language model. And then other than that, all the visual graphics have, in terms of spacing, have a certain amount of space around them, also following the visual language model that aligns with the rest of the infographic. Here are the 3 models I used: the visual language model, the color model, and the layout model. Thank you for watching and helping me reach this point. I didn't think I'd really be able to achieve this at the beginning of the quarter, so thank you so much.